Okay, this is deploying and managing Microsoft Intune. My name is Mark Layton, and I'm an M365 engineer from the Avail Group. And you can find me here. You can email me here if you want to connect with me, or you can also find me on LinkedIn. So here I am. Let's see if I can LinkedIn. Here's me. Here's my LinkedIn. And then you can find me, just Mark Layton. I work for a company called TD Synnex. And then I created a YouTube channel just a day or two ago. I now have 2 subscribers, and I did post my first video, how to configure Microsoft Teams Rooms devices. You might find this useful. Oh, cool, it already has 31 views. Half of those is probably just me going back and checking it as I was setting up the channel. But anyways, check me out, shoot me an email, or find me on LinkedIn, and let's connect, okay? All right, let's talk about Intune. Okay, we're going to talk about core Intune. There's new features of Intune Suite in Microsoft E3 and E5. And I need to go ahead and go 7. All right, and then I'm just doing this on the fly. 7. Okay, there we go. All right, back to it. Here I am, and the agenda. Apologies for that side note. Okay, so we're going to talk about Autopilot version, what I call version 1, Autopilot as it is today, and then device preparation policies, Autopilot version 2. We're going to talk about enrollment between Windows, Mac OS, Android, because that's a lot of people get hung up on that. And then we're going to talk about the new features, analytics, advanced analytics, endpoint privilege management, remote help, and endpoint enterprise app management. Okay, Intune, core Intune, plan 1. Let me use this as a talking point. If you haven't seen these before, my, M365 Maps is really cool. You can go to here, M365 Maps. It's a public repository, GitHub repository by a gentleman named Aaron Dinage. And then if you click on Intune, it's really easy to see what everything is here. Okay, so you've got core Intune plan 1, and if you want to use any of the Intune plan 2 or suite features, you have to have plan 1. So for example, that's what comes with Business Premium or Microsoft E3, okay, or E5. So you got application management, device management. A lot of the stuff we're going to talk about today, you get it with core Intune, plan 1. There are specific use cases for plan 2, which we'll talk about, and then also the Intune Suite. Okay. All right. So example, mobile device management for corporate devices, MAM policy for BYOD. Compliance policies, an example of that is in my environment, I have all of my devices in Defender for Endpoint Detection and Response. If Endpoint Detection and Response through Defender finds a problem, I have a series of things that happen. If it's compromised and the machine risk score shows high, I have a compliance policy looking for that, and then conditional access will kick in and will block the user while we triage the situation and make sure that the user is not compromised. Okay, that way we won't lose access to the bad actor will not get access to corporate data. Configuration profiles, very helpful. You'll be able to migrate your group policy through group policy analytics to configuration profiles, and you'll be able to do everything that you do with group policy today. You can do that in Intune. Conditional access, I'm going to show you a demo of that in a minute, and a lot of endpoint security built in, like baselines, attack surface reduction. You can do a disk encryption with BitLocker and File Vault for Mac devices. Okay, continuing on this, app deployment, configuration profiles, compliance policies, conditional access. Let's talk about that real quick. Really quick, I'll go in here. I'm in Intune, and even though conditional access is part of Microsoft Entra, I feel more comfortable in the Intune portal. So I'm going to go down to my conditional access policies. I'm going to click on create a new policy. I want to define my users or my identities, who I'm going to be doing. So I define that. I'll define target resources, maybe formerly all cloud apps or, things like that. So I might do this. This is going to be my resources. And then I'm going to go down to conditions. And this is a common use case that I have people ask me for. They say, hey, we have Windows devices. We want people to only do their work on their corporate issued Windows device. All right. So what you can do is you can go in here and can configure device platforms. So click yes, select device platforms, select Windows. What this will do is based on your conditional access policy of granting access, it will grant access if the user's connecting to from a Windows device and no other platforms. That's really helpful. The flip side of that, if you want to think about it this way, I just spoke with a gentleman yesterday or a couple days ago, who's trying to manage devices for schools, and for students, they're using Chrome devices. Okay, now Microsoft doesn't have a button for Chrome, but imagine you go through here and you block or exclude all the other operating systems. Maybe you don't want students to connect to their services from a BYOD. I don't know what your requirements are. I'm just saying these are how you meet them. But back to the idea of someone saying we have corporate issued Windows devices and we only want people to connect from those. If you create this platform conditional access policy, what it's going to do is it's going to block at the platform level, but it will still allow BYOD because it's Windows. So you can quickly go in here and create a filter. Sorry, you have to click yes. Then you go to your filter, click yes, and then what I do is I use something called trust type equals, and then if you're a hybrid, you do hybrid. If you're intra, you do intra join cloud native. In my case, that's that. And if I create that policy and I assign that to the user or group of users, now the user has to connect through to their corporate issued data using a corporate issued Windows device. Okay. And then another one you can do is you can create a configuration profile, and you can restrict data from being saved to the physical drive. This will and then you tell your users, hey, save your data in OneDrive or SharePoint, or maybe you're using Dropbox or some other third-party storage. So by blocking at the platform layer, and again, it's restrictive to your user, but maybe you have a requirement for that. You can block, and then you can also do the trust type to ensure the filter that I just showed you to ensure that it's a join device, so it's corporate. And then lastly, if you want to, you can create a configuration profile and require that the user to save data to the cloud storage and not on the physical drive. These are common requests that I get, and those can be met by Intune. Okay. Conditional access security, like we talked about, and then which we'll get into a little bit. And then you've got Windows update rings, and I call out auto patch specifically. With Core Intune Plan 1, you have you can do rings and updates and quality updates and feature updates. And then auto patch is hidden inside of the operating system. So if you have Business Premium, you have the right to auto patch. And if you have Microsoft E3, you have Enterprise OS, there's other auto patch features. So let me say it this way. Intune, you do all of your configuration for auto patch inside of Intune, but the entitlement for auto patch is hidden inside of Business Premium, Microsoft E3, E5, or E7, okay, because it's built into the operating system. Okay, Plan 2, and I think this is easier to talk from the map, so let's go back here. Plan 2, if you have Plan 1, you can add Plan 2, and there's a special use case for this. So firmware over-the-air updates like Zebra scanners, specialty devices like large screens, like a Surface Hub maybe, and then Tunnel for MAM. This is a really a use case. Basically, you can take a BYOD phone and you can give users access to on-prem applications through Tunnel for MAM. I don't see a lot of use case for that. Fine. Okay. These are the ones that are the heavy hitters. Remote help, like a team viewer. Okay. Endpoint privilege management allows a user to run without being a local admin. Basically it allows a user to have local admin rights at the app layer, only a single app layer, and you can define policy around that. We're going to do a demo around that later. Advanced analytics, I've got a slide later that shows the difference between advanced analytics and standard. Cloud PKI can help you. You don't need to have an Active Directory certificate service, ADCS. Enterprise app management, really helpful. I'll talk about some of that later with some demos, and then I just talked about this. Now, if you have M365 E3 or E5 and E7 now, you have E3 includes remote help, advanced analytics, and Plan 2. I don't know how much people are going to find Plan 2 helpful, but maybe you will. But remote help and advanced analytics are super helpful. So if you're using TeamViewer today, or if you have some sort of third party that's giving you some analytics and you're using Microsoft E3, you might be able to get rid of those in favor of these other tools. And then if you have E5, you add endpoint privilege management, also known as EPM. You add Cloud PKI, and you may or may not need that, and then Enterprise Application Management. The three that I find, there's four that I find the most helpful: remote help, advanced analytics, endpoint privilege management, and enterprise application management. Those are the heavy hitters. And lastly, if you have E5 or E7, you'll have some allocation for what we call SCUs to allow for Security Copilot in Intune, which allows you to do queries around your data in Intune. Okay, The biggest thing that I run into with people is that they have issues with enrollment and specifically getting devices in Intune. So for example, I've run into companies who have their devices registered with Intune, Windows devices. In order for you to enroll them into Intune, they need to be joined, okay, either hybrid join or join to enter. I highly recommend enter only, cloud native. Hybrid is very difficult. And so what hangs people up is getting the devices into Intune. So let's talk about that. All right, so if we're in Intune and we go to devices, if you go to enrollment, the old way to do it is to go to devices and you can get a hardware hash and you can import it. At my company, at the place I work, TD Synnex, you can actually we have services around Autopilot, and so distributors and OEMs can register the devices for you. In any capacity, you'll get the device registered. Once the device is registered, you're going to want to go create groups. Okay, what I do is I create 2 groups. So this was for a project that I had to work on. It was called the SMB Connect Symposium. And so what I do is I create one. This is for Autopilot, but by the way, right? I create a dynamic device group. Okay, and then I create my. This is really important here. So this is my my rule syntax for my dynamic membership. And right here, if you're working with a partner or a distributor, you can give them what's called the group tag or the group name. And that once they register, like for example, we register the device on your behalf, we enter this information in, and when the device hits its intra, it sees this logic, and it will automatically enroll the device into the group. So you can see how my devices got enrolled into the group. I was doing 5 devices for this project. Now, the other side of the groups that you need, and these are intra groups. I'm in Intune, but I'm using intra groups, is I create a user group. So I go create my users, in this case, my users, and then I will assign the license to them. I can't remember if licenses are signed. This project's over now. And then I create a dynamic membership rule. And in my case, I create a fictitious user department called SMB Connect Symposium. And so then when I create my users, I bulk create my users, and my users get enrolled into this group, and then my license is targeted to them, because let's remember, you have to have Intune Plan 1 in order for your devices to be able to work with Autopilot. And so that is the nuts and bolts of what you need for Autopilot. The last thing you would have to have, you can target apps and policies and things like that, but the last thing that you absolutely have to have is a deployment profile for Autopilot version 1. So you go into enrollment, scroll down to deployment profiles, and you're going to create a user-driven deployment profile. Let me see if I created one for SMB. Yeah, here it is. SMB Connect Symposium, and then I'm going to assign that to that dynamic device group that I told you about. Okay, that's the glue for Autopilot. Now, that is, I don't want to say it's like difficult, but let me give you a real-world example. I have a teammate who I live in Greenville, South Carolina. I have a teammate who's in Clearwater, Florida. Okay, about, I don't know, 9 hours south of me. Okay, if you're driving, maybe 10. Hour-and-a-half flight. Okay, now my teammate's name is Warren, and he's on my team. We're on the Modern Work Engineering team. Okay, he's working on setting up 8 devices for, by the way, I do all sorts of projects with hardware, right? Teams come to me and say, hey, we want to show our solutions, and specifically like Copilot and stuff like that. So I deploy these devices, like they're the new Windows devices with like NPU processors, neural processing units for AI workloads. And then I put Copilot on there and all that. So Warren needed all that. So under the old way, under Autopilot, I would have had to go and get the PKID or the tuple or the hardware hash of the devices. But instead, what I did is I did Autopilot. Oh, one more thing, sorry. This is new. Under Autopilot, during ESP, you can push Enterprise App Catalog apps, and you can also install Windows quality updates. Okay, this is Autopilot version 1. Now I'm switching to what I call Autopilot version 2, device preparation policies. Okay, also called DPP, or device preparation policies, DPP. Yeah, okay. All right. So here's how, and I gave you the example with my teammate Warren. Instead of using Autopilot version 1, which to be honest with you, I feel more comfortable with, but I'm starting to move towards this because it's easier. So what I did was this was it. This is all I had to do. I went and created, this is the what do you call, this is the template. I should make this smaller so you can see everything. And the only thing that you have to do, if I remember correctly, you have to have a display name, You'll have to have a user principal name. And then what we do for our present, or for mine, is I have an initial password and just create one for every one of them. And then I'm going to go log in as all of these users and change the password. Now, I know that's a little bit cumbersome, but remember, my intention is to hand this device off, just like if it was a new employee. I'm handing this off to someone who's going to take this demo device and use it, or like, and they need to be able to have like Windows Hello and everything set up. So again, going back to the deployment for Autopilot. So this is device preparation policies. Instead of using a PKID and registering the device, I use device preparation policies. So I went and created 8 fictitious users, and so it's CLW indicates Clearwater, AI because that's the new thing today. Everything's AI, and then I just did a generic user 1 through 8. I've got them here. I've got the initial password. Account enabled has to be true. I went ahead and put the first name. I don't care about the last name because it just needs to be this. And then what I did was I created a fictitious department that's going to enroll them into the group. Okay, and that matters. It's really important. Okay, it doesn't matter how you do it, but you just have to get the users enrolled into the group. So the way that I did it in Intune was I went to the groups, and let me make sure I can find this. I think it was, sorry, I think it was Microsoft. Yeah. So I created a group called Microsoft AI July Clearwater 2026. And this group is a dynamic user group. Okay. And then I have a fictitious department, which I showed you right here. See, when I created my user, this is, by the way, this template, I can go upload this to Intra and bulk create the users. I have to have display name, user principal name. I have to have a password. I want to make sure the account is enabled. I added a first name. You may have to do a last name, but I didn't have to. You can do a job title. I did department to help me with my logic for dynamic membership, and then the usage location I think is required. All this other stuff you can do. Oh, and I did country or region in the United States. I think one of these is, I think it's usage location is required, but all the other stuff you can go and put in mobile phone, whatever. Okay, so I created the users, and then because of this dynamic membership rule of this fictitious department, they're enrolled in the group. So now if I go here, you should see 8 members, right? And there they are. Then what I can do is I target my licensing here, in this case, Business Premium and Copilot for Business. I've switched to Copilot Business because it's cheaper for my demos, for my demo devices. And a lot of stuff we have called IUR licensing. So some of these are IUR, internal usage rights. So we pay for it, but it's cheaper because we're not paying like, but a lot of our licensing for our demos, we actually have to pay for. It's just what I'll call cost of business because we have to be able to show this stuff off. And I do real world life cycle testing. Okay, so going back to the example, instead of using Autopilot version 1 and dealing with the PKID or registering the device or the hardware hash, I simply went and created those users, okay? And then this is where the device preparation policy comes in, okay? Let's go back into Intune, okay? And if I go under devices and I go under enrollment, I'm going to scroll down and I go to device preparation policies. Now here's the one where I created this for a project that was in 2025, but it still works, okay? So here's how this works. You have the basics. You've got a name and a description, okay? Whatever, not much there, okay? Then you have, now this is the key, you have to create a dynamic device group. So I created a dynamic device group. Let me go here and just double check this real quick because I'm pretty sure the dynamic device group, I think it needs to be assigned. I'm trying to remember. No, it doesn't need to be assigned. Let me go look at this real quick. Oh, thank goodness this is slow. Okay, let me go back here. Okay, so here I am, Autopilot device group. Go to Intra and see if groups is working faster there. Autopilot V2. There it is. Okay, so I created this, and it's not a dynamic group. It is an assigned group. Okay, so this is really important. When you create your dynamic device group for Autopilot version 2 device preparation policies, the device group needs to be assigned. That's really important. Okay, that got me messed up. Okay, so here I am. I've got my dynamic device group, and we'll go in and just define that. Okay, you choose it. Okay, that's step number 2 for device preparation policies. Step number 3 is define your settings. It's going to be user-driven. I believe it only supports user-driven. Okay, you can't pick anything else. Single user, yep. Intra-join, yep. No hybrid. Okay, standard user. In my case, I want it to be an administrator, okay? Because I'm rolling these devices out to people who need to have local admin rights. I don't care about these devices because we just blow them away whenever we do it. So, but in your case, it's going to be standard. You set that, and then you go back here. And then the other thing you can do is you can do scope tags if you need it. I just have a default scope tag. I don't use scope tags in my environment, but if you need them, they're there. And then the last thing is, oh, in the settings too. Oh, sorry. There's other settings. Minutes allowed before showing installation error. I change that to 120. Right here, actually, this is helpful. You can go in and you can say deployment out of the box. Oh, here we go. Contact, and that will be Mark Layton. Okay, I want that to have some feedback so that they'll know who to contact, right? Get in touch with me if you have a problem. And hopefully there won't be one. Okay, now I'm in the settings and look, here's where I can go and define my apps. You can do up to 20 apps. We have AI Dev Gallery, M365 apps. I like Mozilla. It's going to do all these apps. We also have a place where you can do scripts. Let's see, did I put a script in there? I did not, but if you wanted to, you can add one. I have a script in here that runs on every Windows device, and what it does is if you remember the Teams Classic, it'll go in and strip any version of Teams out and then load Teams for work or school. Okay, and the reason that's important is because when you install M365 apps, I don't believe Teams installs, you have to explicitly go install Teams for work or school. Okay, so there's my device preparation policy. And again, I want you to understand the glue for this, okay? You create a dynamic device group. It's assigned. You create user groups, which I showed you. And in this case, I created that user group. Now, all I do is I go and assign my user group to this device preparation policy. And the reason you do not need the hardware hash or you do not need to register the device with device preparation policies is because of what you just did, right? So the user logs in, and when they log into that user group, it's connected to that device group. The device gets enrolled into the device group, and then Autopilot can take over through device preparation policy. Okay? All right. Now let me show you how they differ, and I'm just going to go through this briefly. Again, no hash, but you can do a trusted corporate identifier. And so the way you can do that is you can upload devices ahead of time. I had to do one the other day, and this is literally all it is. It's just manufacturer, so that could be Surface or HP. The model, in my case, it was a ThinkPad 14, T14. And mine was an S, so I may need to put S there, but you need to get this right. And then the last thing is the serial number. So you can upload that ahead of time. Corporate identifiers are used with device preparation policies. And one other thing to remember too, if you register the device and then you try to deploy with a device preparation policy, it will fail over to Autopilot version 1 because you registered it. So you need to make sure your devices are not registered. You can use Graph Explorer to make a call to remove devices from intro. Okay. So here's the differences, and I'll make sure if you want, hit me up and I'll get you access to these slides. But just some differences between how they differ, right? And then here's some use cases. So for example, if you have hybrid join requirement, you need to use Autopilot because device preparation policies don't do that, don't allow for that. So there's some differences between the two. These are just some things that I'll call out. Okay, now we're going to talk about other enrollment types like iPad and iOS. And I recommend using Apple Business Manager. You don't have to, but Apple Business Manager at the corporate level is really cool. For example, we built a service around this for any Apple device that you purchase through TD SYNNEX through through our services. We can register the device through Apple Business Manager, and then if you have your connections set up through Intune, or it could be Jamf as well. Maybe you're managing your Apple devices with Jamf, another MDM solution. You can point Apple Business Manager to your MDM of choice. In my case, it's Intune. Okay, so let me show you this. So I've got Apple Business Manager. Okay. Oh, something went wrong. Okay, cool. I'm not sure why. Let's see. Everything's really slow today. Okay, I'm logging into Apple Business Manager. I have an Apple Business Manager account. I get my devices registered in Apple Business Manager. And then what you can do is you can target your settings, you go to they changed the UI on me. But anyway, go to Apple Business Manager. Apologies that, oh, here it is under devices. And you can target your Apple Business Manager to your MDM. Here it is right here. So you can see that. And then you can target your Apple Business Manager to Intune, and Intune will be your source of truth there. And then what you can do is you go, and I don't have an iOS device, but I'll use my Mac as an example. I did enroll my corporate issued MacBook. And so what you can do is you go create. Now I just had to do this the other day. I had to re-up my certificate because it was going to expire. It did expire, or it was going to expire. I got a warning. So you just go. You have to have a certificate with your Apple ID and all that. This Apple ID connects to the same one that I use for Apple Business Manager. So again, you have Apple Business Manager, you register the device, and then you have your enrollment profile in Intune. Apologies. So we go to here. Here's Apple. You go here and you create your. Oh, look at that! It's expired. Interesting. Okay, not an issue for me because my device is already enrolled, but I need to go track down why this is expired. Let's go figure it out. Okay, I'll need to go in, and I'm glad that I'm doing this because I'm going to have to renew the token. Okay. And so what I'll do is I have to go into Apple Business Manager and I'll have to get a fresh token and do that here. Okay. And once I do that, I'll connect it. So that way, if I enroll another device into Apple Business Manager, it will automatically enroll into Intune. Okay. And that's the whole key of this. You get your devices enrolled. And then if I go under my device, I can show you, you can see here that it's enrolled in Intune. It's seen as corporate. Which kind of configuration policy do I have to it? A lot, right? Because I have it enrolled into Defender for Endpoint. I've got Secure Enclave where I can use my fingerprint to MFA across the Microsoft services. If I want to, I can push scripts. And then compliance policies. If I want to, like I did encrypt this through what's called File Vault, so I can have a compliance policy checking for that. I can have a compliance policy checking for a minimum OS version. Why is that important? Because if the minimum OS version falls out, then the device can't be in Defender for Endpoint, for example. Okay, and then I can go here and I can go back to my device and I can click on it and I can look under the managed applications that I've pushed to it. So here you can see Defender for Endpoint, so it's enrolled. Company portal, this is a requirement. I had to go create an application for that. I wanted to install remote help, so I created a PKG for that and push that. And then I have the company portal, which is a requirement. Sorry, I'm repeating myself. And then M365 apps. Okay, so if you think so, what I wanted to show you is, and I apologize that I'm showing you iOS, but Mac OS, iOS, and iPad OS are basically the same thing. Okay, it goes to Apple Business Manager, and then it goes into Intune. There's other types of deployment, like if you have BYOD iPhones or something, you can actually enroll them through Company Portal. There's different ways to do that. Okay. All right. With Android, there's lots of different profiles. Okay. So for example, out of all of these, I like corporate owned. Let's see. No. Yeah. So for BYOD, it's personally owned with a work profile. And you'll see what will happen is, like, let's say the user uses like a personal version of Outlook app. There'll be another Outlook app, and there'll be like a little icon on there with like a lock, and that'll indicate that it's the corporate version. So they'll want to use that to set up their corporate, Outlook account. And really, one thing that's really important is and this is a big use case. You want to try to block users from setting up their corporate email on the native version of the iPhone or Android application for email, because you don't have control over that. But if you have a managed app through Intune that you're pushing to a BYOD, you do have control of that, and you can pull that back within minutes of the user leaving the organization. That's a big use case for me. We have BYOD, we've got corporate data on there, the user leaves the organization, now we have nothing, we can't do anything, but Intune can help with that. Okay. Okay, so again, this is for on enterprise with a demo. So I'll just briefly go in here. If you go under Android, a lot of my devices in here are, I do have a Surface Duo 2, which is Surface device, but it runs Android. A lot of my Android devices in here are actually Teams Rooms devices because I've done some stuff with deploying Teams Rooms devices. So you'll see them show up in here. But the enrollment options are these. And then you also have Android open source project, which is you don't do anything with Google here. In this case, I've got Manage Google Play, and I push apps to my devices through Manage Google Play, so you can set that up. In my experience, these are the profiles. If I'm working the fully managed, you have more control over, but at the user level, I find it can be a little bit difficult. And because I do full lifecycle testing, so I'm like, what is the end user going to see? How is this policy going to affect the end user? So the one that I like is I like corporate-owned devices with a work profile. This is just my personal preference in my testing, okay? In my limited testing, in my demo environment, this is the profile that I like instead of this one, okay? Just my take, right? So that's Android. Also, they do have zero touch. I know that, like, for example, if you want to, you can set up connections just like you can with Apple Business Manager. There are zero touch options. So when, like, for example, if you are going through distribution and you have a service of registering the device, it can then be pushed into your Intune environment. Okay, I want to talk about the features, and I'll show you this again. Let me pull this back up. Again, here's the features of Intune Suite, the ones that I think are the most useful: advanced analytics, cloud PKI, endpoint privilege management, enterprise app management, and remote help. These are some of the things we're going to talk about now. Somebody asked me one time, hey, what do you get if you have endpoint analytics versus advanced analytics? And I said, wow, I actually don't know. So I built this report. I was on a call with a customer, and they were specifically looking at adding advanced analytics as an add-on, like just a standalone add-on. I don't know if they had business premium or something like that, specifically because they wanted to get the battery report. Okay. So there's a lot more telemetry that comes through when you have advanced analytics. Now, endpoint analytics included with Plan 1, there's some things that you get from there, but I'll show you this, and this is what the customer found helpful. If you go into reports, and then I go to endpoint analytics, and then you go to, where was it? Battery health. Now, this will not, if you have Intune Plan 1 and, like, say, Business Premium, and you do not have advanced analytics, then you won't see this. You won't see the battery health. So, like, if I drill in, there's only a couple devices in here, but this is helpful, right? So, for example, this is the device I'm coming at you live from, my Surface Laptop 7. It has Snapdragon ARM processor, which I love them. I love the ARM devices. And then my teammate, Mika, she has a Surface Book, and you can see that, it's a little bit different, but I have the cycle count is 110. Number of times the battery has discharged 100% of its capacity, but not necessarily at one time. Okay, so it's giving you some data, but basically in this case, it's 85% is pretty good. But if I was looking at this as a report, I might go, okay, this is something I need to look out for. Maybe Mika's going to need a new device soon. Okay, so that's some helpful information. And then just some more things, like these are real world examples, like checking for resource performance with CPU bottlenecks, tracking battery like we talked about. I just did the demo. You might catch a bad driver update causing crashes on one model with anomalies. Device timeline, you can correlate a restart to the update that triggered it, right? So that might be helpful. There's device query that you can do, where you can find information about your devices. And then if you want to use Copilot, you can do KQL queries and things like that. I have not gone that far with Security Copilot, but if you have E3 or E5, you'll have allocation for Copilot, and you can also fire up what we call SCUs and pay for Copilot, and that's specifically Security Copilot, but you will pay extra for that unless you have E5. All right, now I'm going to get into what I consider the really heavy hitters of the things that I get asked for the most. I would say endpoint privilege management is probably the one of the Intune Suite that gets asked for the most. All right, so again, at the highest level, a user is at a conference, they're not going to be able to get in touch with their IT staff. They have an application that they need to update or something that they need to do at the app layer, and they need to be able to do that, and they need to be able to self-help. Okay, we don't want them to have to get to open up a ticket. I know personally at my company, we have a backlog of tickets where things will take sometimes weeks to get, and that's okay because IT is just doing the best they can, right? And we're in the industry, so we understand that, right? So how can you empower your users to help themselves, right? So here's how if I'm in Intune, I go to devices. Okay, go to devices, and then under endpoint security is where endpoint privilege management resides. And I go here, and the way it works is there's two types of policy. Well, I don't want to say two types of policies, but basically what you'll do is, and remember, endpoint privilege management is only for Windows devices. Okay, so you're going to have a default elevation policy, and what that basically says is that these devices can do endpoint privilege management. So you have to enroll. It's basically a binary. It's like yes or no. So you could have some devices in your environment that are not in here, and then you'll never be able to do endpoint privilege management. And that's okay. But again, you just flip it on. It's a binary. Then per application, you go create a rule. So the one that I use is common. This could be Adobe Pro, but let's just imagine it's Adobe Reader. Okay. What I did was, and actually let me go back here and show you this. You can create, there's two ways to create an endpoint privilege management rule. You can do it with a file hash, or you can do it with certificate. And I highly recommend using a certificate. And the reason is because the file hash will change. So you'll have to keep updating your policy, or you'll have to keep going and updating the file hash. That can be kind of, you can do it, but I recommend using a certificate. So in this case, I went and got an Adobe certificate, and I put it inside of your reusable settings. And then when I create my policy, I can call on that certificate. Okay. So in my case, here's my settings. The way it works is user confirmed is the elevation type. You can do business justification. So basically just like I want to do this, but you can actually hide this behind MFA, okay, if you want to. And there's some other things. And again, the rule is going to call on the certification. That's how it's going to work. So that's how you set up the policy. And then, but how does that work in real life? Let me show you. So here I am. I'm a user, and I've set up endpoint privilege management policy around Adobe. If I double click on this, I'm opening this. Let's just say I'm opening it as a standard user because I have standard rights. Okay, there you go. But if you have endpoint privilege management set up, you can right click, go to run elevated access. In this case, now there's a business justification or you might say something like need it. I don't know what you'd put here, but you might justify it. You have 280 characters. Now, the other thing you can do is if you want to, you can just have them add a business justification, but you can actually have this hidden behind MFA as well. Okay. So once they do the business justification, or they do whatever you require as part of the policy, then you go like this, and now Adobe's going to open, and they will have what we call, and I hate to say this is almost a bad way to say it, but imagine they have local admin rights, but only at that app layer. So they're still a standard user, but now they have the ability to go and no, I do not want to make PDF my default. Okay, so now they have they can go and update the application, do whatever they need to do. Okay, let's see if I can show that. Let's see. No, that's going to take forever. So just wanted to show you that how that works. Okay, here's the slides, and then we're back in here, and then the way it works is you just go and create your policy based on your app. So if you want to create a policy around Zoom or VLC or Visual Studio Code, you can do that. And then you just simply assign that to the group. In my case, I assigned it to, I believe, that's what I did. I created a group called EPM, and it's ARM. So this is for my ARM devices. Although I think this goes across ARM and Intel type. So Snapdragon, Intel won't matter. But I just did it for me because I was doing it for my Copilot device that has Snapdragon, and then I called it Adobe. Okay, so I created a group, and let's just go look at that group. Now, groups has been a little bit slow today, so I'm hoping this is going to go quick. PM. And what did I put in here? Dynamic membership rule. Okay, so I actually did. Let's see. This is a dynamic group. and the members are devices. So what I've done is I targeted this. This is my daily driver, the one I just showed you. So I've targeted it to the device. Okay. All right, there we go. Endpoint privilege management. Now, remote help. Remote help. Here's how that works. Each user has to have remote help app installed. As I showed you earlier, I showed you a Mac. I actually had to create a PKG file to push remote help so that I could have that installed on the Mac device. Remote help you will not find in the Microsoft Store. However, you will find it in the Enterprise App Catalog, which is very helpful. Or you can push it as a WIN file, Intune WIN file if you do not, and a Win32 app if you don't have Endpoint Enterprise App Management, which I'm going to show you. So the way that remote help works is if I go here and I go to my, I'm going to show you this. Let me bring up my cloud PC while I'm doing this. So this is my Windows 365 cloud PC. And that. Okay. Now here's my cloud PC. Sorry, I'm just logging into it. Now you can see what I did was I created a Word file to say this is an Intune remote help demo. Okay, so now you'll be able to see when this logs in. So here's my, and I can prove to you that this is a cloud PC by going and doing a speed test. And I can show you right here. It says Mark Layton Enterprise CPC. CPC stands for Cloud PC. And my cloud PC is in a data center somewhere near Virginia. And this is almost 7 gigabit download. That's how I'm proving that it's my cloud PC. And you can see that I have two different taskbars here. Bare Metal's where I'm coming at you live. The cloud PC is the one that I plan on doing the remote help demo. So I go to Intune, go to Windows devices. I'm going to search CPC because that's cloud. When you spin off a cloud PC, it automatically makes the CPC. And then I'm going to go to mine, which is here. And then I'm in Intune. And I'm going to go to remote action. By the way, they have a new view. You might have seen that. You can change your view. It's a little different. Go here, and I'm going to go to begin remote session. And if you have TeamViewer, you can use that. I'm not sure about other third parties, but I know there's a TeamViewer connection that you can do through tenant administration. I used to have TeamViewer. So we're going to go to remote help. We're going to continue. Now, this is one thing that's really important about remote help. Remote help requires the user to consent. So let's go back into my cloud PC. Let's go to notifications. See how fast, there it is, came through pretty quick. I have and now it's opening up the remote help app. Okay, and this is the user's device. Okay, so on the user's device, it's opening the remote help app. This takes a second. Obviously, we're trying to create a connection. If I had any music or hold music, I would play it now. Now it's waiting for the person to help you set up. So let's go back to here, and we're going to open remote help. We're going to click open. And then now it's opening on my side. This is from the admin side, okay? Give it a second. Let's see what happens here. Waiting for the person. Now I'm waiting for this. It's like we're both waiting on each other. Okay, we're connecting. And apologies for the delay here, but this is just how long it actually takes, right? So it's important to understand that that's how long it takes. But basically, while we're waiting here, I want to mention this. Remote help is in beta right now for what we call unattended access. And you can use unattended access for Android devices. I know because I've talked to people who have used it for their kiosk devices. However, right now, Intune Remote Help is, if you want to use it, it requires user consent. Now, you can't see the screen very well. Let me see if I can change my, okay, you can't see this, but this says view screen, which would mean I'd only view, or I can take full control. There are, how do I say this? There are roles in Intune, and I'll show you this in a minute, but there's roles in Intune where you can go in and you can have it to where you can have someone take full control. Now, I want full control of this device, okay? Because, why? Why do I want full control? If I'm logging in, I want to be able to do admin functions, right? So I need to have full control of the device. So now, here I am back at this, this is the user now, okay? I'm in the user device. I'm having to allow this. They're wanting to take control. Allow. Remember, unattended access is coming. It's in preview. Private preview right now, but it's not here. Now, this is it. I am now, this is me, this is remote help as the administrator, okay? And I'm logged in. And how do I know I'm logged in? Because I'm seeing the same thing as on the screen. So for this is actually kind of cool. I can do this. Let me see if I can change this real quick. On the user's device, I'll change it. I'll put a 1 here. And let's see if I go back to here. This one. Yeah, see, I changed it. There's the 1. All right, so there's remote help. And then I can just click stop control. And I can go like this. And I can say close. And that's going to close. And now that's remote help. Okay, remote help is pretty cool. All right. Okay, now let's go back to the PowerPoint slide. So I showed you, apologies, I showed you remote help. Now we're going to show you enterprise app management. Now, enterprise app management is one that I could think would be really helpful. Let me see if I can go find this one link. Here's a list of all the applications that are supported by remote help. And the one that I want to focus on is Chrome, because I just talked to a gentleman yesterday who was, he's designing solution for a school, and he needs Chrome. And he went and created a Win32 app because they don't have enterprise app catalog, okay, which is fine. They have Microsoft they have Microsoft A3, and A3 does not include the same features as E3, so they don't have enterprise app management. Even if they had A5, they wouldn't have it. In his case, he created a Intune Windows 32 app to push Chrome, no problem. But if you do that, then you will have to manually go and update that. Okay, or we talked about the potential of running maybe a script or a remediation script to be looking at your application and potentially updating it. Now, I don't know if you can do that, but I think that you can in theory. You'd have to go build that. Okay, but imagine now you're managing a script, okay, and you're managing app updates. If you have, this is the value of enterprise app management. If you have enterprise app management, I'll go back in Intune and show you this. You can go to apps, and you can go to all apps. And I'll show you this if I go to create. In most cases, if you can find it in the Windows store, I highly recommend doing that. You know, the Microsoft Store, you just go in and you select it. In my case, like I like Firefox, right? So you will find Firefox, and I can push Firefox. But if I want Chrome, I can't find that, and that's in the Microsoft Store, okay? And that's by design. I don't think Microsoft's going to allow you to download Chrome. But if I go under Windows and I go under Enterprise App Catalog, I'm going to click Select, and I'm going to go here, and what will I find? All these other apps that are not in the store and Chrome for Business. All right. Now, here it is. It's x64. Now, one thing to note is I have pushed a lot of x64 apps to ARM-based devices like Snapdragon, and most of them work. But this is a known issue. The Chrome for Business x64 app that's pushed through the Enterprise App Catalog does not work for ARM devices. So you'll need to stick with your own thing, and I'll show you that. Here's the device I'm coming at you live from. I can prove here, where is it? Manufacturer. They changed the UI, so I'm not sure. Let's see. Let's see where this is. Device diagnostics, not good. Inventory. Okay, and here's where you can see the device inventory and device query. They put that. Okay, well, I'll just stick on the subject that I wanted to stick on. So here I am, all these applications I've pushed to this device. Look at all that. But look right here, I've put a filter on for Chrome, and I'm specifically filtering out ARM. I think I've got a device filter somewhere in here. Let me see if I do it. Anyways, the device filter says don't allow the Chrome application from the Enterprise App Management to be installed on ARM devices because it's broken, okay? All right, Enterprise App Management, super helpful. So these are the key takeaways. I highly recommend trying to go cloud native if you can and using one control plane of Intune, okay? And by the way, I didn't talk about this, but let me just briefly mention. Every device touches Intra and it becomes a registered device. A Windows device can go a step further and go in and be joined. You can set up policy in Intune to say, how do I want my devices enrolled into Intune? So it goes from Intra to Intune, and then I have configuration profiles that go from Intune to Defender for Endpoint. So all of my devices are in Defender for Endpoint connected with EDR, okay? All right, so you can set all that up. Remember that there's new features that are included with E3 and E5. Choose the path that you want for deployment. I highly recommend looking at Autopilot deployment profiles, and I'll give you an example. I'm working with a customer right now and they're like, oh, we're having a problem with the hash, or oh, I can't get them to upload this, or there's an error there. And I go, you know what? Why don't you just look at device preparation policies? And they're like, yeah, we looked at that a while back. And I'm like, well, you might want to look at it, because if you don't have a hybrid requirement, device preparation policies, and let me explain this. If you want to use our services to do Autopilot, then you have to deal with the time that it takes. And so instead of taking, if you order a quantity one Windows device today, we do PPS, pick, pack, ship. We're just going to ship it, and it'll probably ship the same day. If you want services, the device, then the order has to route to our services team, and that can take a few days to get the service done. However, there may be a value add, like for the school that I'm using, the example that I'm working on with the school, and I've spent about 3 or 4 hours training them how to use Intune, because they didn't know how to use it. So it's my job to train them, then they can be up and running. They're going to use Autopilot version 1, and they're going to use pre-provisioning, which we didn't really talk about, but it's fine. They don't have a requirement for hybrid, so I was telling them to consider using device preparation policies, okay? But in this case, they're going to use our services. But I told them, I said, listen, if you want to, and you can do this, if you use device preparation policies, there's no registration of the device. So you can actually just order the devices, you can pick, pack, ship, and it'll ship them the same day, and you can still have Autopilot, right? Because you don't have to register the device. That's usually where they get hung up. But maybe you still have a value for services. Like I know as these devices for this school are coming into our environment, we have Chrome devices for the students, and we have Windows devices for the teachers. So there's 2 separate orders, and all of them are going to get asset tagged, and they're going to get a report. Now I find that helpful because you could go and tag, you could find a way to put that information in Intune, the asset tag, to match the device. So there's a good thing for tracking. Sorry, that was a long-winded thing for choose the right path. Remember that you want to choose your right path for how you enroll your device, whether it's a BYOD or an Android. And then there's also those new great features that are included with Intune Suite. Okay, with that, I'd like to say thank you. My name is Mark Layton. I'm an M365 engineer. I am of the Avail Group. If you want to hit me up, find me on LinkedIn, or shoot me an email through Gmail. The Avail Group 1994. The reason I chose 1994 was because that was when my corporation was incorporated. So I chose that. 1994. Is that 32 years ago? All right, and I put a few references in here, but if you need me or if you need anything, please reach out to me, and I greatly appreciate you attending, and please check out my content on my YouTube channel. As I mentioned before, I'll just go back here and show you. Here is my YouTube channel. It's called the Avail Group. It's your trusted source for Microsoft information across these workloads. So thank you again for your time, and good luck to you. Happy configuring.